This training is going to focus on reporting requirements. Specifically, we're going to focus on mandated reporters for child abuse and neglect, and also just give you a brief outline of HIPAA. So as an RBT, you're a mandatory reporter. So we're just going to watch a video to show what does this mean.
Hi, I'm Shelley Levette with ChildCareLand.com, and today I want to talk to you about what it means to be a mandated reporter. I am often asked the question, what is a mandated reporter? In 1974, the federal government passed the CAPTA, or the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, and as a result, all 50 states have passed laws which mandate the reporting of child abuse and neglect. The mandated reporting laws vary by state, and each state provides its own definition of child abuse and neglect, as well as determines who is considered to be a mandated reporter. They also define what the procedures are for reporting abuse and neglect. Anyone can report suspected abuse or neglect, but a mandated reporter is someone who is required by law to make a report. Who are mandated reporters? Again, the list varies by state, but generally, anyone who is in a profession where they come in contact with children is considered to be a mandated reporter. Some of the most common professions include teachers, doctors, child care providers, police officers, social workers, nurses, foster parents, and even bus drivers. What are the procedures for reporting suspected abuse or neglect? In most cases, a mandated reporter would contact their local Child Protective Services agency. Some states will let you report anonymously, and others will require your contact information. It is beneficial to have documented records that were kept, such as specific dates of injuries noted or any acts that were witnessed. The person or family being investigated is usually not told who made the report. It is not a mandated reporter's job to prove there is abuse or neglect, only to report it. What happens when a mandated reporter does not report abuse or neglect? Most states provide penalties such as fines and even jail time for failure to report suspected abuse or neglect. What are some reasons why suspected abuse or neglect is not reported? People may not be clear as to what constitutes abuse or neglect. They may have a fear of retaliation. There could also be a fear that reporting will make the situation worse. The alleged abuser may be a friend, and there may be fear of legal or financial ramifications. Even though there may be fears or uncertainty about reporting abuse or neglect, it is important to remember that mandated reporters are in a position to help a child who may be in a dangerous or life-threatening situation. For more information on your individual state regulations, please contact your local Child Protective Services office. For What is a Mandated Reporter, I'm Shelley Levette with ChildCareLand.com, and thanks for watching.
So that gave us a very brief overview of what a mandated reporter is. The next video we're going to see is going to go into a little bit more detail about it, and it's also going to go into some gray area questions that you might have when you're thinking about when you're a mandated reporter and you're thinking about what does this mean.
child abuse or neglect?
What does it mean?
Is defined as the acts or omissions of any person or caregiver who is related to, living with, or otherwise responsible for a child who is under the age of 18,
which have physically or psychologically harmed the child.
What are some of the telling signs in a child?
Any injury to the skin,
Bruising,
Cuts,
burns,
Or any other internal bleeding?
broken bones,
extreme pain.
Malnutrition?
Drug use?
failure to thrive,
When the child has been a victim of sexual contact or conduct,
Such as sexual assault?
molestation,
sexual fondling,
incest,
Prostitution?
obscene or pornographic photographing,
filming,
or depiction.
or other similar forms of sexual exploitation.
when there is injury to the child's
Psychological capacity?
Which tends to be evident by their lack of ability to function.
when the child is not provided with adequate food,
Clothing, shelter, supervision,
Psychological
physical,
or medical care.
When the child is provided with dangerous
or harmful drugs.
Except when prescribed.
By an appropriate medical practitioner.
What is a mandated reporter's duty?
If you, in your professional or official capacity,
Have reason to believe that child abuse or neglect has occurred or may occur,
in the foreseeable future,
you personally,
are required by law
to immediately report the matter
to child welfare intake
Or the police department?
who is mandated to report?
all employees or officers
Of any public or private school.
Any licensed or registered professional,
Of the healing arts.
Or any health-related occupation.
all employees or officers of any public or private institution,
Providing financial assistance,
Social
medical,
hospital,
or mental health services.
employees or officers,
Of any law enforcement agency.
including
but not limited to,
the courts,
police departments,
Department of Public Safety,
correctional institutions, parole,
or probation offices.
individual providers of childcare, employees or officers of any licensed or registered
Child care facility.
foster home,
Or similar institution.
all employees of any public or private agency,
providing recreational or sports activities,
All reports to child welfare intake
Concerning child abuse or neglect.
are confidential.
Anyone who makes a report
in accordance with the law,
is immune from any liability
Civil or criminal.
that might be incurred.
as a result of him or her making such a report.
Let's say you are not listed as a mandated reporter.
If you have reason to believe that child abuse or neglect has occurred or may occur in the foreseeable future,
You can immediately report the matter to Child Welfare Intake or your local police department.
Any person can and should
Report child abuse or neglect.
What does someone do if they don't know the name of the alleged abuser?
It is not necessary or required that that person know the actual name of the alleged abuser.
The important thing is that the report be made.
The police can conduct an investigation and hopefully identify the perpetrator.
Does a mandated reporter, including a DOE employee, have to get permission from their supervisor, administrator, or boss before making the report?
Absolutely not. I think it's important that anyone who encounters an abusive situation, the one thing you want to do is make sure that it's not impeded.
The mandated reporter does not have to receive permission from anyone to make a report.
If you're a teacher, you don't need permission from your vice principal or principal. As a teacher, you're mandated to report it. That's your job, that's your duty.
What does someone do if they're told about a possible abusive situation from another adult? Should they report it, or should the person who has the direct information report it?
The ultimate responsibility lies with the mandated reporter who receives the disclosure.
However, the one thing we want to make sure is that the report is actually done so that the safety of the child isn't compromised.
As a mandated reporter, what can happen if you think or know something happened and you don't report it?
The mandated reporter who fails to make the report may be held criminally liable.
But much more important than that, you need to stand up for the child.
If someone is not sure child welfare intake or their agency will think it's abuse, who can they check with before they make a report?
They can always call the CWI hotline, and that number is 1-800-494-3991, and they can ask questions, they can get feedback.
I think it's important for people to understand that when it comes to assessing whether it's abuse or not, that's not our responsibility, it's not our kuleana. It's important that a report is made. Someone who's trained in assessing the situation will make that determination.
It's better to be mistaken than to not report it and something happens and it's going to be on your conscience and you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. But report it. If you're in doubt, report it.
What if someone suspects abuse but can't prove it?
They're not required to prove if something did or didn't occur. That's the job of the police department and the prosecutor's office.
What if someone's afraid of the abuser coming after them?
That is a valid concern. That person may call the local police department, the prosecutor's office, or child welfare services and express those concerns.
Well, they can file a police report if they're being threatened or harassed by the abuser, or they can also apply for a civil restraining order, otherwise known as an injunction against harassment.
That's a natural reaction. You might be afraid of some kind of retribution if you report this and someone finds out who reported it, but your report will be confidential.
If someone makes a report, will they have to testify in court?
They may be required to testify in court depending on the circumstances of the case.
It's very rare that a reporter would have to testify in court.
That hardly ever happens, but even if you have to come to court, you'll be protected.
What if someone witnesses something outside of their job? How does mandated reporting work then?
Although the mandated reporting laws do not require them to make a report, as a responsible adult, they should make a report for the safety of that child.
If you see something, even if you're not at work or anything, report it. Just as a human being, you should just do the right thing and report it.
Are they required to report a child's threats of self-harm or harm to others?
If there's a possibility that the self-harm stems from some sort of abuse, then it should be reported.
If you see a child that's perhaps cutting herself or himself, that is a form of abuse. That's abuse to oneself, so you should report that. If you see a child harming others, the others may be abused by that child, so you should report that and let the agencies decide where to go from there.
Someone is at risk, and so it's important that some care and some assistance be rendered. The greatest risk is that something may be happening, but somebody doesn't do anything about it.
Does a clinician have the duty to report abuse even if the child victim says no, it's okay?
Absolutely yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, mandated reporting means you must report it, no matter what the child says. So you shouldn't promise a child, don't worry, this will always be a secret. You have to do your job, which is report any kind of abuse.
Would a language interpreter hired by an agency involved with the child's case be mandated to report child abuse?
Yes. All human service providers are mandated reporters, even contracted employees.
Are only ongoing or future situations reportable? If past events are reportable, is there a statute of limitations? Or does a level of severity have to be crossed?
The statute of limitations or the severity of the abuse have no bearing on the mandated reporting laws. If a mandated reporter feels that because of prior abuse, future abuse may occur, a report must be made.
What will they ask when someone calls in to make the report?
They will need to know the child's name and contact information,
and a brief description of the disclosure made by that child.
If they know who the abuser is.
In the Department of Education, and I'm sure other agencies have this as well, there's a form that needs to be completed so that when they do make the report, at least they have information that they can readily refer to, and then the form is faxed to the state office or to the appropriate agencies for the follow-up.
What happens after they make the report? Will the child be taken away? What if the reporter feels it's not the right thing to do, and it could make things worse?
Well, it depends on the circumstances of the incident. If police or child welfare services determine that the child is not safe returning home, then the child may be removed.
The most important thing is the safety of the child.
You, the mandated reporter,
Play an essential role in the welfare of our children.
mahalo, mahalo.
Mahalo for putting our keiki first.
So even that video was based in Hawaii, you still got the gist of this. It applies to everybody in every state. So New York State, New Jersey, everybody has their own hotline to call, but that at least gave you a little bit of background knowledge on what it means to be a mandated reporter. Now we're going to get a little bit into HIPAA, so that you can understand why it's so important that you follow the rules of it. So we're going to go through a basic slideshow presentation about HIPAA so you get a basic understanding of what it means. So I'm going to go briefly over these slides so that you get a better understanding of what HIPAA is. So as healthcare providers, because that's what we are, because we are going through the child's health care or health insurance, we have always been called upon to maintain the privacy and confidentiality of a patient's health information. That's why it is a legal and ethical obligation that we hold as, now this is for nurses, but this continues for us as behavior therapists, registered behavior therapists, BCBAs, anybody that has to deal with a patient and their confidentiality. Until recently, everybody was holding everything on papers. Now we do things digitally. It used to be that records were kept safe in locked cabinets and closets, and that's not the case anymore. So with computers and technology, now we're able to maintain electronic files, and that allows a lot more flexibility, and it cuts down on space requirements for storage. Now, there are many people over the course of a case that will probably have some access to information. So that's why it's important that we need to make sure that everything's confidential. The federal government passed a law in 1996 that creates national standards to protect patients' medical records as well as other personal health information. This federal legislation is called the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. HIPAA became effective on April 14, 2003. It sets for minimum standards that facilities must follow to protect patients' health information. The key term associated with the privacy rules is Protected Health Information, or PHI. This covers information that can be found in information used within the facility, written or verbal information, information stored in computer files, information stored in paper patient files, and information shared with other healthcare providers, payers, or third parties. Every healthcare organization is expected to develop policies and procedures to guide practices within their facility. Every person who provides care or assistance to patients in that facility is expected to understand and comply with HIPAA regulations. Okay, so that means that you are expected to, we have put measurements in place and you're expected to follow them. It's important that the patient's health information always be kept confidential. Organizations or individuals that violate the privacy rules are subject to monetary fines up to $250,000 and or civil or criminal charges up to 10 years in jail. Failure to comply may also hurt the reputation of the facility, put accreditation at risk, and result in lawsuits. The goal of the privacy program is to protect confidential information from improper use or disclosure. So what does this mean? Well, we have a privacy officer and a compliance officer, and that will be given to you in your compliance training that you take online. They develop policies and procedures that guide HIPAA implementation, evaluation, and revision. Basically, our privacy officer makes sure that if there's a breach of privacy, we can go and try and treat it. Your responsibility. You must respect confidential information about patients and use information only to perform your role as a behavior therapist. It is your responsibility to be sure patient information is only given or disclosed to others who have a legal right to it. So what information needs to be kept private? All information that identifies an individual is considered confidential. This includes, but is not limited to, name, address, date of birth, phone numbers, social security numbers, medical record numbers, photographs, their insurance ID number. Okay, this also includes your session notes as well. So HIPAA patient rights. HIPAA guarantees several rights to patients. They guarantee the right to privacy, the right to confidential use of their health information for their treatment, billing process, and other healthcare operations, right to access and amend their health information upon request, right to provide specific authorization for use of their health information and other than for treatment, billing, and other healthcare operations, right to have their name withheld from our patient directories, right to request that information is not giving out concerning their care to specific individuals, or the right to opt out of a patient directory, and the right to request that individuals are not told of their presence in our facilities. Every patient and the onset of every patient or their guardian, more likely, received a document called a notice, and this notice of their patient rights they were required to sign. This is on our files. We're going to skip over some of these because this is all kept in our office, and it's digitally signed. Every parent, like I said, had to sign all of these patients' rights beforehand. So HIPAA's goal is to catch staff sharing patients' health information with those who do not need the information. So what do we think? Do we think it's true or false? So it's false. The goal of HIPAA is to protect confidential patient information from improper use or disclosure. If you see an apparent violation, you should report it to your BCDA and also to your privacy officer at the company. Some of the biggest threats to patient privacy is unintentional disclosure of information. So discussing a case where other patients or visitors may overhear, such as elevators, hallways, cafeteria, outside of sessions. Also leaving sensitive information out where patients, visitors, or anybody could see it. Another threat to patient privacy is when a workforce member intentionally uses or discloses information in an unauthorized way. So by copying information and taking it home. Now, if you needed to finish something at home, that's fine. But again, we don't want that at home. Everything should be done at the child's house. Removing their records and giving them to others who don't have them, deliberately sharing information, using confidential information and gossiping about patients, leaving a computer unattended after logging in to an app, or sharing passwords. And again, sometimes we don't mean to do this, but you want to make sure that if you're talking about someone, that there's no identifying information about your client. You also want to make sure that you only use your Achieve Beyond email. And we'll get into that in a little while. It's essential that everyone who provides care and services to patients be aware of what is going on in their surroundings to ensure that confidential information is only shared with those who need to know and at the minimum level necessary enable them to carry out duties and responsibilities safely, effectively, and efficiently. So this should only be given, your client information should only be given out to Achieve Beyond employees and the family. Anything else, including teachers, anyone, there needs to be an authorization from the parent in order to do that. Always be aware of where you are, who is around you, and what information can be seen or heard. It may not be possible to ensure absolute privacy, but reasonable measures need to be taken to minimize the chance of incidental disclosure to others. It's also important to know that if you're on more than one case, you should make sure that you keep your cases separated and that any identifying information is not visible to the other family, because that is also a breach in confidentiality. Okay, we're going to stop here with this and go and move on to more HIPAA violations. So now there are different ways that we can go about by violating HIPAA, and it's not that we again intentionally do it, but there are certain ways. So this video that you're going to watch is for hospital employees, but you can kind of get the point. It's a little bit of entertainment, so you can watch that, and we'll discuss how we can violate HIPAA without realizing it afterwards.
Every day I'm shuffling.
The doctor will be with you in a moment.
Difficult.
Elaine, you shouldn't be reading that.
tell me about this rash of yours.
Well, it's, you know, I noticed that someone wrote in my chart that I was difficult in January of '92, and I have to tell you, I remember that appointment exactly. You see, this nurse had asked me to put a gown on, but it was a mole on my shoulder, and actually I'd specifically worn a tank top so that I wouldn't have to put a gown on. You know, they're made of paper.
Well, that was a long time ago. How about if I just erase it? Now, about that rash.
But it was in pen. You fake erase.
All right, Miss Venice. This doesn't look too serious. You should be fine.
What are you writing? Doctor? You are not going to believe what happened to me at the doctor's office today.
Not the gown again.
No, I was looking at my chart and it said that I was difficult. Why would they write that?
They've gotten to know you.
And then the doctor writes more stuff down there and he doesn't even look at my rash.
Why don't you find a doctor that doesn't know you're difficult?
Elaine, you really didn't have to put on the gown.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love these. You know, in fact, I've got one at home. It's perfect when you just want to throw something on. Hi.
Oh, thank you. All righty. Let me just review your history before we begin.
Oh, where did you get my chart?
From your last doctor. It's standard procedure.
You know, I can tell you my whole history. Let's just...
Oh, okay, let's take a look. Well, that doesn't look too serious. You'll be fine.
No, please, it's really, really itchy. Get in there, get the chart, and get out. You got it?
Yeah, no problem. Listen, let me borrow your scarf.
What?
Yeah, it's
This?
nice, yeah.
Here.
All right. So, one chart coming up.
Okay.
It's Bennett, right?
It's Bennis, you jackass. My last name is Bennis. Yeah.
So I like what you've done there.
May I help you?
Yes. I'm Dr. Van Nostrum from the clinic. I'm going to need Elaine Bennis's chart. She's a patient of mine, and I don't think she's going to make it. It's very bad, very messy.
I see. And what clinic is that again?
That's correct.
Excuse me?
From the Hoffer-Mandorf Clinic in Belgium.
Oh, really?
The Netherlands?
Where's my chart? Did you get it?
No.
What? What happened?
I don't know, but now they got a chart on me.
Hey, how's it going? Good, how are you? Oh, good. Nothing matters, but I am good. Dr. Smith, you nervous? Oh, me too.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, the one with the hemorrhoids, not the Viagra issue.
Okay.
This way. This is Bill, 220A. He came in from the jail with respiratory issues and a UTI. His restraints need to come off at 1400, and you might want a security guard around for that.
What is that for?
He got brought here for all these problems, you know, but he's the alleged Spokane killer and has killed about 5 people.
I read that in the paper. They didn't have his picture, though.
I know. Whoever gets that story is going to make a pretty penny. Yeah. So good luck with that.
Wow. Dude, it's Cindy Lohan. Get in here. Look at some pics. What? Dude, let's get some pictures. Come on. Wait. Here, let me get one. You guys sent it to all our friends. Awesome. One more.
I forgot my clipboard. What are you doing? Go ahead. I'm having such a fun time on our date.
Me too. I've never brought anybody else here before.
I've never done anything like this before. Well, if you need to check your voicemail, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. You can put it on speakerphone, Chandler. It's okay.
Oh, I definitely will. I have nothing to hide.
Okay.
Let me dig it up here.
Hi, this message is for Chandler Bing. This is your nurse from Dr. Gregory House's office. Your test results have come back, and it turns out that you have a raging case of the clap. Please call us back to make an appointment to get treated. Until then, please refrain from sexual intercourse, or at least cut back of the number of partners and swinger parties that you have. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Hey.
That wasn't for me.
You know, I totally forgot that I have to go to the bathroom. So, I'll give you a call or text you later.
Cox, got those test results for you, man. You were totally right about that old dude in bed 4. Syphilis. I used to be a DJ. Syphilis.
Get out of here, Ed.
Right now?
Yeah.
Party rock! Yeah.
Shake that.
In the club, party rock. Looking for the girl, she on the jock, huh? Now stop when we in the spot. Booty moving weight like she on the block. With a drink, I got to know. Tight jeans tattoo, cause I'm rock. Half black, half white, diamond now. Gang of money, open up.
Yo, I'm running through these halls like Drano. I got that devilish flow.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. It was a little less dry than the other ones. A way that you may violate HIPAA is by using your personal email account to discuss a client. Our Achieve Beyond accounts, we're on a secured server, so emails are always confidential. However, if you use your personal email account, you could be hacked and everything could be sent out, and that would not be good. Also, when you are discussing a client, it's important not to have the subject line be the child's name because, again, that could breach confidentiality, so use initials. So what does HIPAA mean for me also? Well, as an RBT, when you're transporting your session notes or anything with the child's name on it, so an assessment, anything with their first and last name, make sure it's covered and not be able to be seen in public. This means your billing should never be face up in your car or bag so that others can see it. You should make sure to lock any child information away in the trunk of your car or a locked bag or briefcase. We don't ever want to take a chance that somebody might recognize a child's name. And this has happened before. The world of autism spectrum disorders is smaller than you think. And it's quite possible that even if you're 20, 30, 40 miles away from something, you could still go and run into somebody that may know someone. So it's important that we keep all identifying information confidential. Here's a list of references, and you may begin your quiz.